Okay, welcome to the session on Focus on Families, making the most of a family guide to study abroad. This is part two. Don't panic if you did not make it to part one. They are connected, but not in a desperate way that you needed to be at the first one to understand the one that we're doing today. So no worries if that's the case. I will kick off here with some introductions and a photo of a gorgeous family at the left. Carrie, if you'd like to say hello.
Sure. So I'm 𝗟𝗧'𝗦. I am the VP of Operations, as it says in the second bullet. But the primary bullet is that I am a mom of two. That is my son, looking very furry and hairy. He is about to turn 21 years old at university. My daughter, Christine, is 22, and she is a participant of an AIFS Abroad program. She did our internship program in Sydney. So I am an AIFS Abroad staff member. I am a parent, and I'm a parent of a student who went abroad on an AIFS Abroad program. So Kelly brought me into this presentation as I tick all the boxes, but happy to be here, and we'll see how we go.
Carrie is the trifecta. It's true. Carrie and I have also had the pleasure of working together for 10 years now. So we are also happy to be hanging out and presenting together. What you'll get is a very informal and chatty presentation from us as longtime colleagues and friends. A little bit about me. I am an only child, so I am the first and the eldest and the only, which makes me the best and the favorite as well. I am a first gen college student, so that was an adventure for my family, not only for college, but also for study abroad. I am also our VP of Strategic Comms and Engagement. So I work a lot with our university relations team and all of our folks who are often out on the road. If you haven't done so already, feel free to say hi in the chat. Not only let us know where you're from, but if you have any gems about yourselves that you would like to share, feel free. We always like to know who else is on the call with us. Again, we are expecting a smaller group today, so this will be a pretty open and informal chat. You're welcome to be on video with us if you'd like, or certainly take a break from video because we know all about that. So let's go ahead and move along. All right, we are talking about specifically a family guide to study abroad. So we are using it as a framework. And what we found, this is our second session, as I said, going through these, and folks who have registered have given us really helpful things to think about in terms of what's on your minds. So while we are using the guide as a framework, it has given us a lot more ideas for additional content. So one of the things that was raised in a registration question more than once was specifically about emergencies and responding to crisis situations and risk management. That is Carrie's wheelhouse, which is also why she is here today. Um, but we will not be dwelling on emergencies and risk today, but it sounds like the interest is high, so there may be another session for that coming in the future. But the guide was redone recently. If you've got that version with the white cover, she's a gem. She's 10 years old now. So the new one was redone in 2024 with IIE. So I have the good fortune of working with the folks over at IIE on their research team to put these things out. Um, it's a beast, y'all. It's over 90 pages and it is robust. It is well thought out. It is very well done, available in both English and Spanish, so that is awesome. And for folks that are here with us live today, we will be able to send you a code at the end. So we purchased a batch of codes and we're happy to give those out to you. So you'll be able to get a copy for yourselves as well. So thinking about where does this fall in the guide, we are going to jump right in. We're in the middle now. So we're in chapters 4 and 5. So our focus today is going to be on staying safe and secure abroad, which is chapter 4, and preparing students for success, which is chapter 5. If you missed that first batch, don't panic. Those are available. They were recorded as well. So we'll be sending out a giant follow-up so you can see all of it in one place. It will also pop into the advisor portal so you can come back to it later. But we are in the middle today. So what you can expect, we are on the clock up until 1:45 today. So we did book 75 minutes. If you need to hop at the hour, no problem. You'll still get the code. But we have given ourselves plenty of time today in case we need it. The hope is to do lots of discussion, right? So this is meant to be um, not only a chance for Carrie and I to talk about these things, but to talk with you. We have found that in past sessions, in particular, folks have questions and ideas, things that are working on their campuses, and our hope is for all of you to share those sorts of things. Share your struggles, share what works, right? This is put yourself in the conference mindset, right? Think about conference session, where you're at, what it is that we can learn from each other. That's kind of the hope today. So, let's get in here. So, as I said, today we are hanging out in 4 and 5 in the book itself. So, chapter 4, staying safe and secure, the way that this is approached in the book is there are kind of several different sections. The chapters do a great job of including a wrap up at the end as well. So, there are typically a list of questions. They might say helpful tips. I've got the literal hard copy in front of me because I'm old school, folks. And I will continue to refer to it as we chat today. But in safety and security, it's things about researching. So, what does it mean when families and students research the risks together? The art of being informed, which, as we know, is hard to do in 2025. Emergencies. So, I mentioned we will not be spending a lot of time on this today, but that will be content for a future session. Discussing safety, having conversations about being safe, and as well as identity and discrimination abroad. So that is tucked into this chapter. There is a great addition in here, specifically from Diversity Abroad, on discrimination. So that is a great addition to this book as well. Chapter 5 gets us into that PDO mindset, thinking about pre-departure orientations, which you all know, love, and are probably doing right now because of where we are in the year, preparing for spring and our winter students. It is all those things that you will recognize and have probably presented on a million times yourself. So, getting organized, healthcare considerations, medications, digital footprint abroad, finances, finances, finances. That is in a previous chapter as well in a little bit more detail, but finances, of course, pops up throughout the journey. Cultural differences, and then like that holy trifecta there, money and phones and packing, things that we were talking about 10, 20 years ago and still continue to talk about today. So we will go in order, and our goal is to spend a bit of time on both. As Carrie and I were writing this together yesterday, we did find ourselves hanging out in safety and security for a while. So this does tend to be one of our most common questions. So in chapter 4, as I said, stuff that we're getting into, I wanted to make sure that you knew a little bit more about what is actually covered. So part of my intent in this session is also to tell you what to expect once you get into the guide. Because if these items resonate with you, we really want you to be able to go back to the guide and look it up, right? Pull out those things that are most interesting to you and you might use the most. Again, for those of you that are just hopping in, feel free to say hi in the chat. Let us know where you're coming from, what brings you here today. So, chapter 4, researching the risks. So, in this chapter specifically, some of those trusted resources that IIE has called out are going to include the Department of State. We know, though, now that there are some resources that may have previously come from state and federal sources that have changed in recent months. So it is important if you've got some lists. The one I will call out in particular, if you have advice for LGBTQ plus travelers, those links have changed or the content has been changed. So it is a good idea to look and audit those to make sure you're aware of what is listed or what is no longer there. Some of those links may be throwing a 404. They may be broken links now as well. So important to bear in mind. We do call out STEP, right? So that is in here. The CDC, which we all know and love from our time during COVID, especially. And then things like travel guides as well. So that gets us into being informed. Carrie's going to dive in a little bit on the next slide about 8 ways to get informed. So that is something that comes from the book. It is not a ranked list. It is a bulleted list. Lots of good lists and very copy pastable things that come from this guide. Emergencies are addressed, as well as a bit on medical treatment as well. So when you're thinking about this guide and physically hold it in your hand or look at the PDF that you download, it's important to know that this book is written with parents as the audience, right? So we're trying to bridge the gap between this is something written for them, and we are trying to help you help students help themselves, help their parents make a decision, right? So The guide, when you pick it up, it's written for families, right? They are the audience. So some of this stuff will be very obvious to advisors, but it is useful for you to put this kind of material in the hands of your students and their families. Carrie and I went round and round on that just earlier this week, thinking about how we wanted to present the information. 15 points on discussing safety. So what we were told in our session that we did last week, top questions that parents often ask about, parents and families, are asking advisors about safety and about costs. Those are the top two. And so in that case, this chapter speaks to a lot of those things. There are points in here which speak about obeying host country laws, getting to know the neighborhood you'll be staying in or working or going to school in, how to protect your valuables, being safe if you choose to drive or if you choose to use public transport, pickpockets, right? All of those sorts of things are in here and listed out. They are certainly good to use as conversation starters, I would say. And as I mentioned, we've got tips in here about addressing discrimination abroad, talking about bringing up if your student has grown up in the United States, what your perspective may be and what that may look like. There is an excellent list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different sources to receive information about identity abroad that are not tied to state or federal resources. So 𝗦𝗢𝗖𝗜𝗓 is in here, so Mobility International, the Neurodiversity Hub, goabroad.com, Black Expat, lots of different great sources in here. So all that is tucked into chapter 4. And then top tips. So that is just a few pages, so you get an idea of what is actually in there. Going through this material together, Carrie and I also wanted to ask just a few questions of the people that are here, just so we can dig a little bit deeper into this topic and what you do on your campuses. So the questions are up in front of you here. First question being, do you collect family contact information? The options being yes, emergencies only, yes, for emergencies and non-emergency comms, or for non-emergency communication only, or no. There are several questions here, so be sure to scroll down. What is the most popular resource that you have for families in regard to health and safety? And then what topics are you asked about most often by families? So we gave you a glimpse of what folks said last time, and we included a few more options here. So you should be able to see the poll. There are those 3 questions there. Go ahead and take a few seconds just to look. All right, we have some answers coming in. And we do have some folks on here joining us from other organizations, so no worries if these do not particularly resonate with you. You can also drop a note in the chat. Okay. I know it takes a moment to get through and read them all, so thanks for humoring us. We've been playing with Mentimeter and also with Zoom surveys, so this one is Zoom polls if you are interested in using these on your own. You can design them beforehand and then launch when you go live, so. Okay. We are at 72%. I'm going to go ahead and 81%. Y'all are with me today on a Friday. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and end this poll so you can see the results. Okay, the majority of you have indicated yes, you collect family contact info for emergencies only. That is the dominant answer by a landslide. Some of you do collect for emergency, non-emergency. If you would like to share with the group, feel free to drop into chat either how you do that or for what purposes you might use that non-emergency contact. This is a really interesting space for us, and I know for many of our university partners as well. I think emergency and risk communication is often the primary way we talk to our families and support systems. So really interesting to think about what we might say to them in a non-risk situation. Most popular resource you have for families in regard to health and safety is a fill-in answer, so I will come back to that here. Again, safety and cost. Coming in hot. Those are the most popular questions. We can see here also, let's see, orange is going to be the most, right? So safety being all of the time, some of the time, cost kind of edging out there a little bit at all of the time. Identity is a split between some of the time and none of the time. Housing gets a little bit of airtime. That's one of our favorites. Academics as well. Insurance. All right, let me see if I can open this up. Okay. So, what I see for the most popular resource you have for families in regard to health and safety, talking to our office, a web page, currently working on a study abroad parent page, way to go, Florida Gulf Coast, a resources website, and an FAQ section of the website. So I see lots of web here. So that certainly will be important for our conversations, thinking about how and where you present the info. Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay, let's get back to full screen and rock on. Carrie, we are on to 8 ways to get informed.
Great. So thanks to Kelly for driving us through all the tech as well. I think also as we discussed this, Kelly and I were talking about the importance of presenting some of the things, either from an AIFS abroad perspective or also the guidelines or the guidance, I should say, that the guide entailed, but was also one of the strongest things that we saw in the registrations was that you all wanted to talk with each other and learn from each other and get best practices, ideas, and sharing. So, as we talked about in the agenda, we will be, I believe, twice during the session. Breaking the group out. And I think with the number of participants, we might just do two groups. I'll leave that to Kelly's masterful driving at the in the behind the scenes. Um, but again, what we wanted to address with some of these slides are to say um, recommendations, topics, thoughts, whereby, like for those of you who are developing resources, what are some of the things that you should think about? So, 8 ways to get informed. Funny enough, I just did the AIFS Abroad Parent webinar earlier this week. So we did have a tough time, Kelly and I, when we were putting this together. We kept talking about what to say, not necessarily how to guide the session to have a conversation with you all about what then should be said in a parent webinar. So we kind of went round and round. Um, as it's listed here from the book, the topics that they recommended raising were research current events. I believe that parents are more likely to look at current events than their participant is, but important that this be a hot topic of conversation. And then what is appropriate news to read? What is truthful news to read? Learn local laws has both a safety and security aspect, as is this is the chapter that we're in. Um, then also take some of the mystique away from the parent as to just thinking or not knowing exactly what is going to go on a location on the ground. Understand healthcare access. So this is different than understanding the ins and outs of the travel and medical insurance that you may have. This has the thought process as to understanding that yes, participants may be going to a hospital for services, but this does not mean that every healthcare is an emergency, like we would consider going to an emergency room or hospital. So understanding the terminology and the access points, not necessarily the ins and outs of the medical insurance. So understanding the differences. Practice language basics. Obviously being able to communicate with the host culture, host family, making sure that parents or family support systems are thinking about these. Ready about everyday behavior and culture. I know that we do a hopefully very good job with our participants before they go abroad about understanding cultural norms, but it is very important for parents to receive that information because invariably, with culture shock of their student or family member going abroad, they will 10 times out of 10 be that first call to say, I don't like it here. I don't understand what's going on. So it is very important to provide those resources to parents in presentations as well. Talk to people from that country. That's outreach to the local community, local business, or again, if it's a homestay, to maybe make some outreach with that host family. Talk about U.S. stereotypes. Um, Again, because our family don't get the majority of the pre-departure training that we try to provide to our students. It is just a flag to raise. How you all individually do that, we can talk about in some of the breakout groups, and then read evaluations from alumni. This, I think, understanding the feedback from the alumni participants, understanding how they communicated with their family is also then very important to translate that back in. So the guide will give you some of these resources, but then how you integrate it and how you utilize that. So um, we do want to put you into breakouts. I'm not sure, Kelly, on the back end, if you've sort of put those together.
Oh, I'm ready.
Um,
Let's go.
Excellent. The next slide, we wanted to speak to what are some of the topics that you were using in the pre-departure orientation. But for those of you who don't have one yet, it's a listening opportunity. For those of you who are doing them, I think discussing amongst yourselves what's working is fantastic, but then what is not working. So seeking assistance to figure out um, what you've identified is a piece of information that you think is critical that is not being received, and how better to do it. So I think we wanted to give people a minute or two to think first. So we may pause the presentation for a minute, give you a minute or two to think through some of the questions you may have if you're not doing one. If you are doing one, to come up with a list of what is working and what is not working. And Kelly and I, when we were talking about this, what is not worth your time? So if you have done family webinars or conversations or open calendar meetings, what have you determined is not worth your time that you would be willing to share with colleagues who are developing theirs so they also do not waste their time? So a minute to think, and then we will put you into breakouts.
Let's focus on the what is working, what is not working, or not worth your time. I think that's an important one if we're thinking about this for our own sanity, self-preservation, the preservation of our offices. Anyone want to either raise their hand or unmute, give us an example, or pop it in the chat?
I will say if no one had a great answer for this, one of the things that we were just talking about in the group that I was in, and thank you to that group for letting me crash after you all had started. I just sort of appeared. Um, the crux of the issue, a lot of what we were talking about is, or mentioning at the end there was where letting parents know that the information exists, that their participant, intern, student has it. Where do you put it? Like, how do you get it to them in a way that it even saves you time from having to answer the question in the first place? Um, so I was in with Lee and Sarah, and there was someone else, sorry, and I just totally forgot because her face isn't in front of me. Um, and
Think it was Rachel.
well, I think it was Rachel too. I was like skimming through the participants. I'm so sorry, Rachel. Kind of addressing just it's all good information, but then where do you put it so people can access it? That's a little bit about what we talked about.
Great. We will see that on a future slide as well. That came up in our first session too, is the material in a place where families can reach it. Okay, well, let's motor on.
One thing that worked really well for me, I have spent the last 5.5 years working on um, State Department sponsored youth exchange programs with 𝗟𝗓𝗧, and so dealing with a lot of parents in the high school world. And one thing that worked really well for me was to record short, like 3 to 10 minute long videos on the most frequently asked questions that I was getting, making those available to the students and their parents, and then it made it a lot easier for me when I would get questions throughout the year about like how do I file an insurance claim, and how do I communicate with my student, to just send them the link to that video, in my response to their question. So I didn't have to write the same email every single time. That I found really useful, and I think could be easy to do for any of those like most frequently asked parent questions.
It's a good call, Rachel. I think videos have come up a lot for us recently.
Mhm.
YouTube Shorts is actually one of the greatest things that could help you in this situation. Being able to record something may also seem terrifying. I feel like we've gotten some requests about that recently, so stay tuned. Maybe we'll pop up a session on how to record a good video. Rachel will come find you. Being able to put something up that someone can read at 2 in the morning without your direction or input
Mhm.
is aces. So that is a great thing. The email template also, Rachel, I want to lift that up. That's a really good point. Being able to have something copy and paste ready for sure. So what we wanted to make sure we thought about as well is this idea of expertise, right? A lot of times, especially if you're in a small office, a one-person office, or even in a larger office, it is not always on you to deliver this information. And are you the best person to do so? So when we think about expertise, who are the other folks in the room that could assist you? Are they colleagues throughout the campus, right? Who are your campus partners and champions that could help with this? Are there situations where having an expert may not only add additional validity to what you're saying, but also just give you more confidence, give families more confidence? One of the areas we highlighted when we were walking through this was mental health and physical well-being. Can you bring in someone from the counseling center? Is there an outside source perhaps that you use? Some of the 𝗟𝗧'𝗦 abroad locations use Mind Hammock, so we may also use some Mind Hammock resources, for example. So being able to point them to the right kind of resources, making them available offline, which it sounds like was what was raised. So that becomes super important. So here at the end of this chapter, thinking about ways to put it to work, right? This is always the hard part when you're doing the conference session and you have the good ideas, and then it's actually going and doing the work. So my question is, how many emails would it take you to do some of these things? Some of these things may be within your power, or you may need to ask for assistance depending on where it is and what your campus is like. The first being, what can you add to your website? Which fits right in with what all of you answered earlier. It sounds like what you may already have is on the web. So my question to you is, when is the last time you looked at it? Click all the links, have somebody just read the text. Are you using up-to-date language? Make sure none of the links are broken if you have a really deep resource list. Thinking about trusted resources. This fits in with what Rachel said, recorded materials, right? And again, you don't have to be the one on video all the time. So if the idea of recording a video with your face on it for all time and eternity sounds terrible, then call someone else, right? You can use another expert. Why don't you consider an alum or a peer advisor, right? Another face. It could be that a peer advisor or an alum connects with their family and helps you create content in that way. So making sure that also that we're being mindful of diverse faces, right? So as information is delivered, whether in video or live, making sure that we're thinking about who it is delivering the material and who could help. Asking for help is a really big deal to get us through some of these tough things that we have to do and have to talk about. Okay, we are going to move on to chapter 5. So in the book for chapter 5, what we see, as I mentioned earlier, this is PDO all day. This is everything from your pre-departure orientations. This is typically what you are delivering in those moments prior to getting your folks out and about. It's going to be everything from organization. Where's your passport? Do you have a copy? What kind of money can you take with you? Have you thought about a financial plan? That's one that we've been hearing a lot about lately. Budgeting and also planning cultural differences. How aware is an individual of where they're going and what it might be like to be particularly a US student in a certain place? Um, Good old money, phones, and packing. That one's actually never going to go away. I think we will always see that one. So let's do just another round of questions here. In this case, we're talking about preparation. So based on these topics, what do families ask you about the most? If you were to choose three from that list, we've got the getting organized, what to pack, passport, visa, airfare, a little bit more logistical, money and cost of living, communications, phones, staying in touch, healthcare, medication, accommodations, cultural resources. The second question is, what do you wish families knew about study abroad? That is an open-ended answer.
We did ask for the top three of question one because we figured everyone would just go down the list and be like, yes, 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 yes to all. So trying to really get a sample of the which do you feel are the most answered.
It only lets you do a single choice though, just so you know.
Oh,
Um,
rough. Oh, Zoom surveys, y'all. Here we are. Here we are. The things we learn. Feel free to drop it in the chat. Well, then I extra appreciate the thought it took to put just one. So what I see right now is one for passport, visa, and airfare, one for money and cost of living, two for healthcare, medications, and accommodations. Starting to spread out a little bit now. We're at 75%. So I am going to go ahead and there's the eighth. Thank you. Let me end this poll. Share what we've learned. So bearing in mind, you could only choose one. Money and cost of living is tied right there with healthcare, medication, accommodations. Also the organized packing, passport, visa, airfare as well. And let's look at, I can see this on my screen, not yours, so give me a moment. What do you wish families knew? That their student will get more out of the experience if the family takes a back seat. Ooh, I love it. We're going to print that on a t-shirt. That providers set up programs in places deemed safe. They often cross programs off the list for their students. Very interesting. Culture shock and how to support their family member. Awesome. That challenges are good for students. Well said. That their student needs to do pre-departure tasks themselves to gain the independence that will allow them to flourish abroad. That is a separate session, my friend. That is a different TED Talk altogether. Their student has the resources available to them to do their own problem solving. All of these really, thank you for being so thoughtful. They are very well said. It's like you guys do this for a living or something. Uh, really, really excellent points. Particularly this concept of how do we help students help themselves.
Mhm.
Have spent some time on this as well. This is kind of our next topic here to break out. Carrie, if you want to set us up and I will do the magic on the back end.
Perfect. Absolutely. So, following on from the poll and those most awesome replies to having students help themselves, what we wanted to do with this breakout is similar to the one we did before, trying to help each other figure out how much time would you or have you spent working with families? Kelly's hashtag boundaries is knowing that your focus is the health, safety, and academic success, cultural adjustment of the student. How much time in a 9 to 5 day do you spend on families? Do you in your office speak to students about expectations. So expectation setting with both the student from the institution, whether it be behavioral conducts to success, and then does that translate back to how do you talk about those expectations to the family? And I will say that we're going to loop about, I will give you, some of the key phrases and key topics that we talk about in the AIFS abroad pre-departure orientation, but then wanted to let you all hear from each other about the time you spend, the expectation setting with students, and do you share those expectations with families?
Okay. We've had
All
a lot of
right.
conversations together. So what we thought,
So
go ahead.
what is the best resource you have on hand? And I think, happy to hear just a shout out at this point for a couple minutes if you wanted to take yourself off mute. Some of the things that Kelly and I were brainstorming were, do you have a great resource that is a packing list checklist, a financial planning sheet, visa guides, which are always tricky because you need a million of them. Do you have one that is helpful for parents, accommodations? And with this, accommodations not meaning housing, accommodations meaning accommodations, whether it's is there a mental health issue that it would be helpful to know about? Is there a visual impairment or a mobility impairment? So any sort of accommodation sheets that you have, identity resources, what else? So the follow-up question is, what else do you think you need? But happy to hear from anybody who has put a new resource available to parents that you have found great success with. I say you can either raise your hand, I'm not sure I can see everybody, or just jump in. And the answer may be that you have developed these for your participant going abroad and are hoping that they share it with their family. So it may not be that you have a specially designed resource just for parents or family support systems. Um, Another question may be, where do you put it? And do you share these resources with family? So again, in the first breakout group I was talking with, it was like, if you have it, where do you put it so parents can access it? So then the follow-up question is, are these also suitable resources that you should make available on your frequently asked questions sheets for parents? But happy to hear from anybody.
Well, like we've definitely in our office been talking about having something more for families, just because I think we're finding that families have lots of questions, and sometimes students are great at answering those, and sometimes they're not. And so I think trying to sort of find that balance between putting enough information out there, but not so much that the students don't have to take responsibility for themselves. And where do you find that middle ground?
That is a great point because the personal growth of our students is one of the outcomes that we don't maybe necessarily track, but that we expect. So making sure that they are taking responsibility and accountability for their own progress through this is very important. We don't always get there, but it is always important. Anyone have a thought before we move on something of a resources list that you would not share? Because sometimes it's helpful to know what not to versus what should be shared.
I would say one thing with that is we've had a lot of questions about like withdrawal fees and like the costs of programs, especially the student withdrawals, and like families wanting like itemized lists of these expenses. And like we have not provided that, and kind of that balance of like, if you show them a whole budget or a full thing of expenses, they're going to nitpick every single thing that's not, nobody has time to deal with that.
Yes.
And we shouldn't have to. So like kind of trying to manage, especially the financial piece at my end, of giving enough information about that and the process, and more information now up front about how everything is dealt with withdrawals, but not doing too much. And we kind of did make one change that I think has been helpful, hopefully, on kind of our financial agreements that our students sign to be financially liable for their program, is having a box that states like, if someone or my family member is contributing financially to this program, I have spoken with them already about this and shown them this agreement. And I'm hoping on the back end, if a student withdraws and a family member's, angry that, oh, it's a lot of money, I didn't know about that, that we can actually kind of hold that student accountable of saying, you signed that your parents did know about this. So hopefully I'm hoping that kind of starts a conversation on the front end of those parents seeing those kind of documents that are really important. But we'll see.
No, I think that's a great point. I know from AIFS Abroad, we have implemented another task. You know how a little bit like your iPhone contract, you go through, I'm signing things, I'm signing things, I'm signing things, and students aren't necessarily reading what they're acknowledging. We have a very separate standalone task in their portal that kind of reinforces withdrawal language, dates. As you were saying, Kelsey, it doesn't maybe necessarily go through the exact dollar amounts and all the things, but it does say, it's having them acknowledge the fact that they are aware of drop dates, they are aware of the refund policy, they're aware of their liability. And it's short and sweet and to the point, but it is something that our students have to do. So then when we do have conversations with parents or even sometimes the students themselves to say, yes, but you said you did. So I think again, alerting parents to the fact that their students are receiving information is helpful, but again, not going down the rabbit hole of being overly specific can be helpful.
Those are excellent points. Thank you, Sarah and Kelsey, for sharing those out. Coming into our last 15 minutes here, so just a few more things that we would point out, and perhaps this came up in some of your discussions. Changing it up is always one of those things I think that can be exciting, but also daunting. Because if this is something that's in front of you as an option, maybe you don't have time, none of us have time, and trying to think about, well, what is the most important, what is the priority? What content can do double duty? What can serve two audiences, your students and also your families? I really appreciate the point about, well, if we give families too much, students have to do as much. Someone called that out earlier, that families are doing things for their students, which is super intense for us as administrators and folks who have an eye on their students' personal growth as well, right? So thinking about some different options where what is it that you want to do with your PDO? What do you wish it did? These are just some things to consider. This is a great topic coming into the end of the year, thinking about maybe you, if you have a team, being able to sit down and throw some ideas around. Also a great idea to call some colleagues at local institutions, just send a group email out to some friends and be like, hey, could we just get on and talk about PDOs? I really want to redo mine, or I loved what you did with yours. Tell me more about this. So just kind of a prompt to ourselves to consider, to think about what it is that we might change up. Putting it to work, I think we've indicated that web is king. So being able to put something somewhere that folks can reach it. I agree with Sarah's point that there is a balance. One interesting section that you could consider is a what to expect. I feel like we do a lot of management of expectations. So what kind of language is currently on your family's section of your website or that page, those FAQs? And also, is it inclusive in that it speaks not only to families that are committed to studying abroad, their students are enrolled, but what about families that are considering the process, right? So families who are out in front of it, this is a big commitment, a big financial commitment, and are there questions that you could answer for them? Putting them under a different header maybe, so they are called out for those individuals. What to share with your students, something you love, right? Right in time for holiday break, this is a great time to consider what it is that we're offering students as they head home and off campus. And thinking about talking points or questions. I really love this as an option, right? FAQs, we either take what we've been asked all the time and provide answers, or we are making assumptions, frankly, about what it is that we might be asked about the most. But what if you turn that on its head and instead offered a prompt or a question? Here are 5 things to think about with your family or with your student, right? At least one of you indicated you're collecting family contact info for non-emergency situations, using what's in the book, or again, based on your own FAQs. Think about giving them something to talk about. Maybe not giving them the answer, but encouraging them to get somewhere together. So that idea of collective research. And we've talked about video, right? So this concept of who else can help you with video, being able to provide something visually. Perhaps alumni, again, could be useful on video for you. Carrie and I wanted to make sure that you knew about 2 of the things that AIFS Abroad offers, so that is here at the end. Our cultural engagement resources. So earlier this year, as many of you did as well, we had to reassess our DEI approach, including our language, how things were housed, how they were presented. So we were grateful for many different best practices from other colleges, universities, providers, everybody trying to do the work together. And where we landed, as have others, is cultural engagement is now part of health and safety, which is a really great place for it to be, right? We want our students to be able to be safe and be themselves when they are abroad. So identity resources they make sense in health and safety. For AIFS Abroad's purposes, Corey Saunders on our team has done an incredible job of working with our overseas staff and collating information for different audiences. So there are sections on, for example, being a first-gen student abroad, being a woman abroad, LGBTQ abroad. There are 9 of those audiences. And then we also have site-specific. So for every city where AIFS Abroad offers a program, each of those audiences is addressed per location. So at the bottom of every program page, you're able to get out to the cultural resources and review those on your own, or encourage students and families to review them together. It also includes links to our accommodations forms. Carrie was just part of the process to update these in this year. So now there are a variety of forms to help students and their families decide if they would choose to disclose. They range from mobility to neurodiversity and cover a whole variety of topics. So those are all available on the website. The forms are available to download in PDF, so you can see what it is that we offer for students as well. But please, please borrow these. Please borrow the links. They will go out in the email after this session. Take this information as you need. Just give us a shout that it came from AIFS Abroad, and we are more than happy for you to utilize it and put it on your pages, on your sites, in your presentations. Carrie mentioned she just had the chance to give the family PDO just this week. So Carrie, what would you
I
say
did.
about our process here?
So I would say that it has changed over time. So we first did it in the summer of 2022, and we have refined and tweaked as we go. We have definitely honed in on the safety and security aspect. Insurance, travel, visas has really been our focus, although we do mention accommodations and the cultural engagement piece as well. The way we run that is we send out information to participants. So we, for example, just did our our spring 2026 presentation. We send information and links to the student. The student hopefully then sends it on to their support system. That family member registers, and off we go. We do both our study and intern programs together. We typically have between 1 and 3 presenters, and then we also have a team basically just answering questions in the chat. It is very general, so we tell family members that we are not answering location-specific questions, but they always ask location-specific questions, as well as questions very particular to their student. So there's a team behind the scenes answering those. The presentation is recorded and shared. For shareable things that you all may want to consider, one of the feedback that we receive almost the most on is, again, the usual thank you for all this information, but there is a slide in there that we have put in, which is these are the questions you should ask your participant, or your student or your intern. And it is literally a thank you, because I don't even know what questions to ask. So we've heard from a lot of people, both in the individual breakdowns, that even today, that frequently asked questions sheets are very helpful to put them into place because a lot of the family members literally just don't know what to ask. So in our pre-departure orientation, we're very prescriptive, saying you need to ask your student when their pre-departure orientation is. You need to ask your student what resources are available to them about insurance. Where is the insurance brochure? Have they selected classes? Have they gotten approval? So we basically give our parents a laundry list of questions to ask their participant, therefore indicating and telling them we, in this case AIFS, but you all have developed these resources. You have shared them with your student. The student has it. The parents need to be aware that they exist. Um, and, it's always great because for the spring ones, we can always say, your participant is going to be home at Thanksgiving or at Christmas. Check in with them and walk them through the resources. So that is the stance that we've taken, I think, and that has been helpful.
Thanks, Carrie. That one is a labor of love. So I loved,
Indeed.
I would point out about this that this is a space for continuous feedback. This is a space where we continually refine the session every time we offer it. We
Yep.
may change a slide, but it all comes from what we're hearing from families, what we're, hearing from students, what the staff are experiencing, our advising staff, our staff abroad. So there are lots of different opportunities. University partners as well, of course, are included in. So that, my friends, brings us to the end. So Carrie and I are more than happy to, I love that XXX is not completed for you. It's a Friday. Carrie and I can certainly hang out and answer any questions, or if y'all would like to chat some more, we've got a few more minutes. But part 3 of this will hit chapters 6 and 7. So that's support on site. So this includes culture shock, mental health. It also talks about returning. So I will be joined by our Berlin director, 𝗟𝗧, who is a total star. That will happen on December 4th. The thing on the right that lacks context is there are sessions that we offer for families who are thinking about study abroad. So there is an email coming out. You'll get information in your follow-up and also in a separate message going out to all of our partners. Last year and in previous years, we've offered sessions on Black Friday. And to me, I'm envisioning families in sweatpants, hopefully with leftover pie, talking about study abroad. And I really like that. And so there are families who sign on. It's usually really well attended. And then this year, we're going to offer one in early December as well. So I believe, I want to say December 4, but that's our date. I believe it's a different one. So excuse my lack of info here. But they are for folks who are thinking about it, so not necessarily for folks who are committed. So for our purposes, we are trying to get out kind of to more folks and figure out how can we help, right? That's kind of the push for all of these. So I will leave our info up here, and I'll also drop a link for the survey in the chat. I will send you a code, so don't worry about that. You will see that soon. Otherwise, we will go ahead and close out for today. So thanks for joining us on a Friday. I appreciate the time. And thanks for joining Carrie and I.